Hello, here we are. I'm going to show you around the planer that we have in the wood shop for planing the pine boards. Planing a board means either smoothing the board out or changing the thickness of the board. Many of the pine boards that we use will be an inch thick, but they're very rough on the surface. They haven't been planed smooth from the mill. We'll need to run them through the planer in order to smooth them out. So this particular board is nice and smooth on the surface. You also use the planer to change the thickness of the board. This board is around an inch thick. If we needed it a ½ inch thick, we would run it through the planer. So, very simple machine. Let me show you around how to use this particular one. Okay, so this particular machine, there are feed wheels in the front and back, and in the middle is where the blade is. There are 3 blades. They're very, very sharp. When the machine is running, you feed the board into one end. It'll take the wood out of your hand and run it through at the correct speed, and it takes a thin layer of wood off the top of the board. So if we needed to plane a board, this guy, down to a ½ inch thick, we would have to run it through multiple times. Each time it runs through, it's going to take off roughly 1/16 of an inch. On this machine, on-off switch here in the front, pull it towards you, turns the machine on. Hand wheel on the side is the elevating hand wheel. Turn it towards the back wall, that lowers the machine down. So after we run it through, we'll turn the hand wheel, lower the machine down, run the board through again. Roll it the other direction and it raises the cutter up. This one has a variable speed, so this knob here, while it's running, can be changed to change the feed rate. That doesn't need to be touched almost all the time that we're using it. This has a depth gauge on the side. You can adjust that, raise this up above 1 inch thick, and turn this knob on the side. That'll allow it so you'll keep planing until you get to the desired thickness on the depth gauge, and that'll stop the machine from going any thinner. It should be accurate, although I would not trust it. Grab a ruler and measure as you're going along. There is a scale here on the side, so you can get a rough idea of how close you are to a particular thickness. Before you run a board through the machine, make sure to check it over. Is there one end that's thicker than the other end? If so, that's the side that goes in first. Are there any nails or rocks in the surface? Screws in the surface? Those things, when they go through the planer, will end up ruining the blades. Raise the machine up. This is at 1.5 inches. When I put the board in, it slides back and forth with no resistance. We're going to lower this down, turn it towards the wall, until the board just gets stuck. So right about there is where I'm going to start. Could probably go a little bit lower, but I'd rather have you start with it set too high and the first pass or two not cut any wood than to start with it too low. This is a home model planer. It's not really a heavy-duty industrial one. If we put too much strain on it, we can and have broken it. So I'd rather have you start too high. So the board just starts to get stuck. That's where we're going to start running the board through. On this machine, you need safety glasses on. You do need hearing protection on as well, because it is very loud. When I start running the board through, you won't be able to hear me at all because the machine will be too loud. It's also connected to a dust system. That needs to be turned on so that all the wood chips can get sucked away. So I'm going to turn on the dust system. I'll go ahead and turn on the machine. We'll feed the board in. It'll take the board out of my hand and run it all the way through. You're going to go around to the back and catch the board. Lower this one turn. The elevating hand wheel for this machine, for the pine boards, most of what we'll be using, one turn on the elevating hand wheel. Lowers it down about 1/16 of an inch, and you can run the board back through. So I'll do 2 or 3 passes so you can see what it actually looks like. Again, the first couple passes probably won't cut anything, but it will as we start working our way down. Once you get one side of the board nice and smooth, we'll flip it over, we'll plane the other side until you get the thickness of the board to what you need it to be. So, dust collector. Alright, hearing protection, looks kind of silly, dust collector's running, let's go and run this thing. So that's using the planer. Run the board through, machine will take the board, run it through at the correct speed. Once it comes out the back, one turn of the elevating hand wheel, lower the cutter down, 1/16 of an inch, run it through again. Keep repeating that process until you get to the thickness that you need the board to be. Then you're done, finish, shut her down, and continue on. So that's a quick introduction to the planer that we have at school.